Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
The Gladstone region is often referred to as an industrial town, but it hosts much more than meets the eye. The wider region hosts a diverse and important range of natural environments. There are endangered terrestrial ecosystems and many threatened species of plants and animals, some of which can only be found here. The region's 150-kilometre coastline extends from Raglan Creek in the north to Baffle Creek in the south. There are over 254 square kilometres of wetland, most of which are valuable estuarine systems. These wetlands feature important seagrass meadows and mangrove systems, providing a natural storm surge protection. Parts of the coastline also serve as important turtle nesting sites. 55% of the region is covered by natural vegetation, with 16% of our land classified as nature, conservation, forestry and parkland, including national parks. These conserved lands and their surrounds provide vital habitat for the 64 threatened animal species living here. Gladstone Regional Council recognises our responsibility to protect and conserve biodiversity values. We strongly value our natural environment and appreciate the eco-services our environment provides to both our economy and community. And we're striving for sustainable growth through both our policies and plans. Every year, Council proudly participates in many environmental initiatives, partnering with community groups and enthusiastic volunteers. We also facilitate a volunteer program called Friends of Conservation, where volunteers work with our people to propagate plants as well as other conservation projects. We recognise climate change and the environmental and economic impacts this will bring to our region. We are one of 30 Queensland coastal councils now participating in the Our Coast, Our Future program. This program is addressing potential economic, environmental and social impacts climate change may bring, and will see the creation of a coastal hazard adaptation strategy to manage shoreline erosion, inundation of coastal areas, and give direction on the long-term management of the region's coastline. The diversity of the Gladstone region's natural environment contributes to its appeal as a destination to visit and enhances the quality of life for residents. Gladstone Regional Council will continue to develop strategies to preserve, conserve and enhance these natural settings for present and future generations.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
The Gladstone region is often referred to as an industrial town, but it hosts much more than meets the eye. The wider region hosts a diverse and important range of natural environments. There are endangered terrestrial ecosystems and many threatened species of plants and animals, some of which can only be found here. The region's 150-kilometre coastline extends from Raglan Creek in the north to Baffle Creek in the south. There are over 254 square kilometres of wetland, most of which are valuable estuarine systems. These wetlands feature important seagrass meadows and mangrove systems, providing a natural storm surge protection. Parts of the coastline also serve as important turtle nesting sites. 55% of the region is covered by natural vegetation, with 16% of our land classified as nature, conservation, forestry and parkland, including national parks. These conserved lands and their surrounds provide vital habitat for the 64 threatened animal species living here. Gladstone Regional Council recognises our responsibility to protect and conserve biodiversity values. We strongly value our natural environment and appreciate the eco-services our environment provides to both our economy and community. And we're striving for sustainable growth through both our policies and plans. Every year, Council proudly participates in many environmental initiatives, partnering with community groups and enthusiastic volunteers. We also facilitate a volunteer program called Friends of Conservation, where volunteers work with our people to propagate plants as well as other conservation projects. We recognise climate change and the environmental and economic impacts this will bring to our region. We are one of 30 Queensland coastal councils now participating in the Our Coast, Our Future program. This program is addressing potential economic, environmental and social impacts climate change may bring, and will see the creation of a coastal hazard adaptation strategy to manage shoreline erosion, inundation of coastal areas, and give direction on the long-term management of the region's coastline. The diversity of the Gladstone region's natural environment contributes to its appeal as a destination to visit and enhances the quality of life for residents. Gladstone Regional Council will continue to develop strategies to preserve, conserve and enhance these natural settings for present and future generations.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
The Gladstone region is often referred to as an industrial town, but it hosts much more than meets the eye. The wider region hosts a diverse and important range of natural environments. There are endangered terrestrial ecosystems and many threatened species of plants and animals, some of which can only be found here. The region's 150-kilometre coastline extends from Raglan Creek in the north to Baffle Creek in the south. There are over 254 square kilometres of wetland, most of which are valuable estuarine systems. These wetlands feature important seagrass meadows and mangrove systems, providing a natural storm surge protection. Parts of the coastline also serve as important turtle nesting sites. 55% of the region is covered by natural vegetation, with 16% of our land classified as nature, conservation, forestry and parkland, including national parks. These conserved lands and their surrounds provide vital habitat for the 64 threatened animal species living here. Gladstone Regional Council recognises our responsibility to protect and conserve biodiversity values. We strongly value our natural environment and appreciate the eco-services our environment provides to both our economy and community. And we're striving for sustainable growth through both our policies and plans. Every year, Council proudly participates in many environmental initiatives, partnering with community groups and enthusiastic volunteers. We also facilitate a volunteer program called Friends of Conservation, where volunteers work with our people to propagate plants as well as other conservation projects.
Well, good morning. The special meeting of the Gladstone Regional Council, I declare open our budget meeting for the July 7th, 2020, and welcome councillors, officers and members of the gallery and those watching our 2021 budget on the live stream. There's no apologies, all are here and accounted for, so I'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is prior notifications of MPIs and conflicts of interest, which there shouldn't be for the budget meeting. The next item on the agenda is the budget overview, which I will deliver now. So as I said, good morning, councillors, council officers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm proud to present the Gladstone Regional Council's 2020-21 budget and associated operational plan, the first for this new council term. The theme of this year's budget is Our Community, Our Future. This year's operational plan and budget reflects Council's focus on helping the community and the economy recover during the COVID-19 health emergency. It is centred around engaging communities, a healthy environment, outstanding customer service, smart asset management, operational excellence and economic resilience leading to growth. While uncertainty remains regarding the long-term impacts of COVID-19, Gladstone Regional Council is delivering a budget that ensures key projects are continued and new projects are brought forward to support continued employment opportunities. Council partners with both the state and federal governments, community groups, industry and our economic partners to ensure that we are well positioned to deliver the best outcomes for our community now and into the future. By fostering these partnerships, Council can deliver extra services and facilities to the region while reducing the burden of rates and charges on our ratepayers. Council has been working closely with our recovery committees and we understand the impacts of COVID-19 and what that has had on our economy and our community. And I'm pleased to announce today that Council will be freezing rates and charges for the 2020-2021 financial year. This means that all ratepayers in the rural, residential, commercial and light industrial categories, rating categories 1 to 16 inclusive, will not pay more in general rates than they did last year. In order to give effect to the rates freeze, those properties that would have otherwise received an increase due to the implementation of the rate cap will receive a COVID-19 concession to reduce their effective general rate to the equivalent of what they paid in general rates in 2019-2020. The amount of this concession will vary between individual properties, but the net impact will be the same for all receiving this concession. The total value of this concession is $657,000 and applies to almost 4,000 properties. Further, in recognition of the unique needs of our pensioners and to encourage our pensioners to continue to be independent and live in their own home, we are offering eligible pensioners a remission of 50% of the differential general rate to a maximum of $300, which is an increase from last year. This is in addition to the state government that also offers pensioners a concession to a maximum of $200. When looking at the average residential ratepayer in the Gladstone region, in line with the decision to freeze rates and charges, there is a decrease in the general rate of 1% and the overall decrease, the average ratepayer across all services, of 0.05%. Other budget highlights include $15 million of financial assistance from both the state and federal governments. This will provide much needed stimulus and allow for the acceleration of shovel-ready projects. From that $15 million, Council is receiving $8.2 million from the federal government's financial assistance grant, including indexation, $5.2 million from the Queensland Government's COVID Works for Queensland program, and $1.6 million through the federal government's Accelerated Local Roads and Community Infrastructure program. I'm also pleased to announce, for the 8th consecutive year, Council will have no new borrowings. This budget will ensure key projects and new projects are brought on to boost employment opportunities and minimise the funding costs to our ratepayers. Council's $64.8 million capital works program includes state and federal government contributions of $27.2 million, reflecting our effective strategy of seeking specific funding for capital project expenditure. The 2021 capital expenditure will include $15.3 million on community assets and facilities, $11.6 million on upgrade to wastewater, sewerage infrastructure, $9.6 million on road projects, $6.2 million on upgrades to water infrastructure, $4.5 million on parks projects, $3.1 million on bridge upgrades, renewals and replacements, and $2.4 million on footpaths and cycleway upgrades. During these uncertain times, Council is focused on building and maintaining our capital assets to support the standard of living in the Gladstone region and seeking opportunities to partner with community, industry and other tiers of government to ensure that our region remains a great place to live, work and play. Some key capital projects to be undertaken this financial year include $3.2 million for the Banarabi landfill cell development, $2.3 million for building and electrical improvements at the Tondoon Botanic Gardens, $1.55 million for gravel road resheeting. This is in addition to the $3.2 million Council will spend on our annual gravel road maintenance program in 2021, $1.4 million for bridge replacements at Gorge Road, John Clifford Way in Lomead, $730,000 for Gundoon Street footpath renewal, $690,000 for the Agnes Street car park in Agnes Water, and $200,000 for safety improvements for Turkey Beach Road. As I mentioned earlier, developing partnerships with other levels of government is crucial in lowering the cost to ratepayers. The federal government's Local Roads and Community Infrastructure program will deliver $1.6 million for safety road improvements at 2 locations, at the Dawson Highway between Far Street and Breslin Street, and at Blackman's Gap Road, Miriamvale. The Queensland Government's $5.2 million COVID Works for Queensland program will deliver projects this financial year as well, and this includes the Gladstone Aquatic Centre Rejuvenation Project, an upgrade, floor replacement at the Boyne-Tenham Community Centre and upgrades to the Castle Tower Community Building, safety and building improvements at the Gladstone Entertainment Convention Centre, upgrades to the Cassie Live Skate Park, playground replacement across the region, a second way bridge at the Banarabi landfill, Gladstone Wastewater Treatment Plant, stormwater mitigation, and pump station renewal. As we continue to embrace our vision of connect, innovate and diversify, funds have been allocated to 3 strategic projects across the region. Work will proceed on the design stage of the Boyne Tanham Aquatic Recreation Centre, the development of the Coal Exporters Sports Complex at Marley Brown Oval, and the Boyne Burnett Inland Rail Trail. I'm also happy to announce that the Phillip Street Communities and Families Precinct, Council's signature project, in partnership with the Federal Government, the Salvation Army and the Gladstone Foundation, is under construction and will deliver a much-needed social services hub, retirement village and aged care facility for the Gladstone community. The precinct's first stage is due for completion by June 2021. An expression of interest window remains open until July 28 for retirement and aged care providers to build, operate and maintain a facility within the portion of the overall site. So I would encourage those providers to submit an EOI via LG Tender Box if you haven't already done so. It has never been more important for Council to focus on economic development of the region as we work to continue to navigate the COVID-19 induced downturn. Our focus on the economic development of our region is supported by dedicated in-house resources that are driving our economic recovery group with key partners from throughout the region. This is to ensure that all initiatives to support economic recovery are targeted to achieve maximum return. Council has a clear economic objectives to facilitate sustainable, financially and environmentally responsible initiatives that will advance economic development in the Gladstone region for the community. Our economic development specialists will continue to implement the economic development strategy, collaborating with key businesses and industry leaders to attract and sustain investment in our region. The continuation of our investment in the Infrastructure Incentive Program provides incentives by way of discounted levied charges for specifically eligible developments that will deliver economic development and growth outcomes that align with Council's economic development strategy and our planning scheme. We will continue to invest in improving asset management practices with a strong focus on engaging with stakeholders, building staff capability and identifying opportunities to reduce the cost to serve. We are already starting to see the benefits of improved asset management as we move to more proactive maintenance in water and wastewater fields. For every maintenance activity we can shift from reactive to planned, Council will reduce the overall maintenance costs. I'm also pleased to announce that water access charges and water sewerage charges will not increase this financial year. Water access charges and sewerage charges differ across the various schemes of Lake Awonga, Miriam Vale Baroran, Agnes Water 1770. However, in line with Council's commitment for the 2020-21 budget, these charges will remain the same as levied for the previous financial year with respect to residential, commercial and light industrial customers. Our cleansing, which is our refuge charges, have also been frozen this financial year, applying to all premises receiving a domestic and recycling charge. Council's underlying waste cost services, excluding recycling, increased in line with CPI. The associated cost of disposal, transfer station operations and recycling component have had significant cost pressures applied during the past financial years. Last year, Council adopted a 3-year price strategy in its budget for the recovery of waste costs. However, the second year of this price path implementation has been deferred in line with the freezing of our rates and our service charges. Unfortunately, it has been necessary to pass through the cost of the commercial waste levy at our landfill, but all other increases have been deferred for the 2021 budget. This means the refuse charge across the region will remain at $345.50 per annum for a standard 240 litre weekly waste service and a 240 litre fortnightly recycling service. Finally, I'd like to congratulate all those that have helped prepare these vital documents which set out Council's plans to deliver for the coming year. I'm confident that our budget will renew, rebuild and maintain our cost-effective delivery of service to our region while navigating our way beyond the impacts of COVID-19. I look forward to working with my fellow councillors, council officers and the Gladstone region community in 2021, and I commend this budget to you all. Thank you. To you, Mark, do I need to move that speech? And then we'll have a second. I'll move the Mayor's budget overview. A seconder, please. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good luck. All in favour? Thank you. That is carried. The next item on the agenda is S1.2, which is the revenue statement. I'll hand to the Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item is consideration of the revenue statement to support your budget for 20/21. It includes essentially the principles on which you will rate for the year, and also goes into detail as to how we will apply our various initiatives. The main amendments to this policy from what you would have seen in previous years is a inclusive of that COVID-19 concession to all ratepayers in categories 1 to 16, ensuring that there won't be any increase in general rates or service charges to those properties. We've also amendments to our hardship provisions and water leak concession provisions, ensuring that they apply to not just residential, but they also apply to business and commercial properties. The other key amendment there is with respect to our discount periods and include extending that discount period for a 60-day period at the 10% rate. So the revenue statement supports your budget and is there for your consideration.
Any questions, councillors, or do I have a mover? Move Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor Churchill. Before we put that motion, so just reinforcing what the Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk is that the 10% discount period has been extended from 30 days to 60 days. So that'll give our residents 60 days to take advantage of that 10% discount rather than 30 days for 10% and 30 days for 5. It'll be 60 days for 10%. Moved by Councillor Hanson, seconded by Councillor Churchill. I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is S 1.3, which is the long-term financial forecast. Over to you, Mr. Holmes.
So your long-term financial forecast sets out our best understanding of our current environment and our assumptions around what our financial future might look like based on the inputs there are in and around our rating assumptions, but also looking at the outputs that are coming from our asset management plans, as well as some of those population estimates that are coming through and what we're seeing realised. So major changes from previous long-term financial forecast is probably a decrease in our growth rate, recognising and rather than connection to the 2% state long-term growth rate for a region, putting that financial forecast in line with what we would expect to see and what we have seen over the past 5 years. So that has had makes those forecasts more realistic, and what we see is that whilst we've got an operating deficit of $4.3 million for the 20/21 financial year, we do return to an operating surplus in the following financial year and for the remainder of those out years, with some minor surpluses out to 27, and as some debt start to fall off in the out years, that surplus increases.
Thank you. Questions to the General Manager or mover, please? Move Councillor Trevor, seconded Councillor Muscat. Put the motion. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is S 1.4, which is our debt policy.
As you're required to do with each budget, you're required to review your debt policy, and the attached debt policy for your consideration updates our forecasts that are in line with your long-term financial forecasts. There are no borrowings forecast in the period, but what we do look at is smarter use of our financial resources and establishing working capital facilities as required with Queensland Treasury. But the debt policy is there for consideration and remains unchanged.
Questions to the General Manager or a mover, please? Move Councillor O'Grady, seconded Councillor Cameron. No further questions. I put the motion. All in favour? It is carried. Thank you. We move to the next item on the agenda, which is S 1.5, projected financial statements for the year end 30th of June 2021.
Projected financial statements really are in line with the long-term financial forecast that we touched on earlier, so just reflect that operating position of $4.3 million deficit for this year, but then returning to minor surpluses then for the 2 out years, and also reflect the position with respect to our capital investment and our debt, so they're there for your consideration.
Thank you. Questions or a mover, please? Move Councillor Branthwaite, seconded Councillor Hanson. Any further questions? No. I'll put the motion. All in favour? That is carried. Next item on the agenda is our rate payment periods and discounts.
So as required, this report lays out the what charges the discount will apply to in each of the against each of our rates and charges, and and as we stated, extending our discount period from 30 days to 60 days at the rate of 10%. Discount applies to all charges there, with the exclusion of the your water consumption charge and the state emergency management levy.
Thank you. I have a mover in Councillor Goodluck and a secondary in Councillor Muscat. Is there any questions?
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes?
We need to move points 1, 2 and 3 as separate resolutions.
Thank you. Bear with me, I'll get back to that. In the rate discount period. Okay. Okay. So, well, can you explain why, please? Sorry.
The legal advice that we received was that we require separate resolutions for each one of these items for the different matters that they consider. So it's 1A through to D, then 2A and B, and then 3 and 4.
Right, well, the original movers of that was Councillor Goodluck and Muscat, I think. Are you happy to move that as item 1? Thank you. I'll put now back as item 1. All in favour? Then we'll, thank you, carried. We'll move to the next item, which is item 2, which is Councillor Churchill and Trevor. I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's carried. And then item 3, if I could have a mover in Councillor O'Grady and Hanson. Put the motion. All in favour? That is carried. Thank you. O'Grady and Hanson. And 4? And thank you. And item 4? Thank you, Councillor Muscat and Councillor Cameron. And I'll put that all in favour. That is carried. Is that all of them? And that would be all of them. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is S1.7 differential general rates.
This report considers your 24 rating categories for the 20/21 financial year. There are no new rating categories this year. What this report does do is separate out the rating categories in the first part of your resolution, and then the second part of your sets out what the rate in the dollar that is to apply to each of those categories, what the minimum rate is that applies to each of those categories, and whether there's any rate cap that's applicable.
Thank you. I have a mover, please. Move Councillor Trevor, seconded Councillor Cameron, Chris and Chris. I'll put the motion. All in favour? It is carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the S1.8 Coronavirus COVID-19 concession.
So in order to give effect to the rate freeze, it's necessary for us to look at awarding a concession that looks at comparing what your 20/21 general rate calculation is, and compare that to what was actually levied in 2019-20. So this resolution gives you the head of power to grant that concession, which gives in effect that rate freeze.
Thank you. I have a mover in Councillor Churchill and seconded Councillor O'Grady. Churchill, O'Grady. Put any further questions? No. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is S1.9, our pensioner concession.
So your pensioner concession consideration, it looks increasing your pensioner concession from up to $300 and is there for your consideration.
Thank you. Move Councillor Goodluck, seconded Councillor Branthwaite. Question, yes?
Question, Mr Mayor. If you wouldn't mind, we've increased it from a local government perspective. What's the state's contribution? Could I just get that clarified? What's the state's contribution, and appropriately, how do we go about trying to encourage the state to increase that in the future?
Thank you. Well, in my budget speech, I did mention the council's maximum is up to 300 and the state's maximum is up to 200.
Yeah, you
so
did. Thank
500.
you for noting that, Mayor Matt.
So if they combine the two, that's a $500 discount that you can receive as a pensioner off your general rates. Okay, we'll have a mover in Councillor Goodluck.
I haven't got my question answered, thanks, Mayor Matt. I was just asking, at this particular stage, is that the 200 contribution, what do we need to do to encourage the Queensland Government to perhaps come on that journey for our pensioners in a dollar-for-dollar basis for the future?
Okay.
In your role on the LGAQ board?
For me, okay, well, I'll make sure I take that up at LGAQ. We could have it as a conference motion, but that's not the agenda item we're looking at today. We're looking at our own pension remission policy, which is up to $300 or 50% maximum of $300.
Mind you, I don't have a material interest in this, but our pensioners out there would want to come. Our pensioners would want to come and appreciate what's being offered, but I think also at the same time, if we are in a true partnership, I think it would be advantageous for us to take up that on behalf of all of our pensioners.
You're here. All right, thank you.
Mr Mayor, I think Councillor answered his own question.
Yes, possibly have. Thank you. I have a mover in Councillor Goodluck and Councillor Branthwaite. I will put the motion. All in favour? The motion is carried unanimously, I might add. S1.10, which is our properties exemption from general and differential rates. Over to you, Mark.
Yep. So this adopts your policy in and around the properties that are exempt from your general and differential rate. The Local Government Act and Local Government Reg specifies a number of land uses that are exempt from the general rate. Those are for generally state uses and uses such as hospitals, schools, and religious institutions. What this policy looks and does under the head of power provided under the Local Government Reg is gives council the power to consider that exemption and extend that to properties that are utilised for charitable purposes and are being conducted on a not-for-profit basis. And there's no real change to this policy, but it's just that confirmation of your existing policy.
Move Councillor Muscat, second and Councillor O'Grady. Is there any questions? No? I'll put the motion. All in favour? That is carried. And the next item on the agenda is our rating financial hardship, S1.11.
So, as flagged earlier during discussions today, we've have expanded this policy based on the feedback that we've received from the Economic Recovery Group to expand the financial hardship policy to incorporate not just residential land uses, but also business and commercial property types for their consideration. So, just provides that head of power for consideration and putting in place more flexible arrangements for those people that may be struggling to make rate repayments.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hanson, second Councillor Cameron. I'll put the motion. All in favour? That is carried. The next item on the agenda is S1.12, which is our waste cleansing charge.
Mr Mayor, as you touched on, there's no change in the overall most common service that we receive for our waste services, that being the 240 litre waste service and a fortnightly 240 litre cycling service of $345.50. What this does is establish that rate, but also the rate for the various options that we provide to residents with respect to waste provision across the region.
Thank you. Mover, please. Thank you, Councillor Branthwaite and Councillor Churchill. All in favour? The motion is carried. Next item is S1.13, which is water charges.
This considers your essentially your water rates to apply for both fixed and consumption charges for each of your water schemes across the region, and they vary according to the meter size across the area.
Thank you. I have a move of that motion, please. Move Councillor Goodluck, second to Councillor Trevor. Put the motion. All in favour? That is carried. The next item on the agenda is S1.14, which is our sewer charges.
This report considers your domestic sewer charges to apply to the schemes in Gladstone, Boyne Island, Tannum Sands and Calliope, and Agnes Waters and 1770 for the financial year. It also strikes the volumetric charges with respect to the LNG plants and also the Yowan trade waste recoveries as well.
You have a mover in Councillor Hanson and a seconder in Councillor Muscat. Put the motion. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the water allocation and sewerage connection concession.
This policy considers the assistance we provide our not-for-profit groups with respect to access to water to maintain fields and their facilities, but also provide relief with respect to sewerage charges and like to ensure that those groups can get on with the business of supporting our community. So the only change there has been a inclusion for our standpipes, recognising that there has been the need for some of those businesses during the drought periods that we've had, particularly in the last financial year, to extend that water concession to apply to standpipe usage as well.
Thank you. I have a mover in Councillor Churchill and seconded by Councillor O'Grady. Any questions? No. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Motion is carried. The next item is seal water leak concession.
Your water leak concession policy remains unchanged, with one additional component added, and that is the ability there for business and commercial properties to apply under the policy. So, at the moment, previously that policy was restricted to residential uses, so that's now been broadened.
Thank you. Mover, please. Councillor Cameron. Second, Councillor Branthwaite. The motion. All in favour? That's carried. Next item on the agenda is our special charges, S1.17.
In line with the special rating agreements that we have with each of the LNG facilities for the provision of sewage infrastructure across to Curtis Island, this strikes a rate that's recoverable from each of those lien holders underneath those respective agreements.
Thank you. Move Councillor Goodluck, seconded by Councillor Muscat. I put the motion. All in favour? That's carried. S1.18 is our fees and charges for the 2021-25 financial.
This is the head of power for the adoption of the schedule of fees and charges that are attached for the 20/21 financial year, in line with our rates and charges. That these are irrespective of the commercial waste fees that need to be increased to recover the state government waste levy. The rest of the fees and charges have been frozen.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Hanson, second by Councillor O'Grady. Put the motion. All in favour? Motion is carried. And the final item on the agenda is S1.19, which is our operational plan and budget. Over to you, Mark.
So this gives you the head of power to adopt your operational plan that supports all your budget activity for the year, and also gives the head of power to remove any doubt that the adoption of your financial statements and all the other supporting documents that you've considered today, when considered collectively, become your budget for the 20/21 financial year.
You have a question from Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Matt. Congratulations on where we've got to at this stage. But I wanted to ask a question, which is the one I customarily ask every year, is that are we fulfilling our requirements legislatively in relation to community service obligations, CSO? I recognise it continually through our document, as we are in local government. As community service obligation, I believe that we're legislated to achieve that certain level. I believe that this council exceeds, well and truly exceeds, the legislative requirements for community service obligations. But I'd like to get it on public record today, just to clarify that we are fulfilling all those requirements.
The documents and budgets that you've adopted today include recognition of community service obligations formally, where we have those obligations with respect to our commercial businesses, and certainly informally with respect to all those other activities we do that aren't part of our commercial businesses, which form part of our operating position. So yes, it includes that.
Thanks for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, I'd like to move that from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor Muscat. I'll put the motion. All in favour? The motion is carried. And there is no confidential items for our budget. Thank you. That is the end of our... Sorry, Councillor Trevor.
Thank you, Mayor. It would be remiss of me if I didn't thank Mark and his wonderful staff for a fantastic budget delivered in very difficult and uncertain times for our community. And thank you, Mayor Matt, for leading us to the delivery of this budget today. This community has faced fires, it's faced cyclones, it's faced economic downturns, it's faced now COVID, and we remain and will continue to remain a very resilient community. But it makes me very, very proud to be here today to support you, Matt, to support the councillors, and once again to thank the wonderful effort and support and hard work that our staff put into delivery of this budget, which I am sure will be welcomed by our community at large, given that rates have been frozen in what is otherwise very difficult circumstances. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Mayor Matt. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, CEO. I'm very proud to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. I'll echo those comments absolutely for our council officers, particularly the finance team, and everybody in this room has done a fantastic job to get this together on very uncertain times. But there's, as well as my councillors, we'll have a fantastic team. The community made the right decision in March, absolutely. But there's another group I'd like to acknowledge. I did earlier, but I would like to acknowledge our Economic Recovery Committee and our Community Recovery Committee. They have provided us with the feedback which has allowed us to move forward with this rates freeze as well. So thank you to everybody. We will now take a break while we discuss the budget with the media, and then we'll be back for our general meeting. Tenure at 11 a.m. Thank you. All right, we'll pause now and we'll be back at 11 a.m. for our general meeting. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.